Hey y'all, my name's Priscilla and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing the Who Am I book tag, and I was kindly tagged by Adriana over at Perpetual Pages, so I'll make sure to link their video down below. And this is a tag that was originally created by PBS for the Great American Read that is currently airing, and I am pleasantly surprised by this series. I actually have been watching it, and I'll make sure to link that information down below if you have no idea what I'm talking about. But you do have time to still vote for your favorite book. And I really like these questions. They're actually really tough. So it took me a little bit of time to figure out my answers for some of these questions. So let's just go ahead and get started. The first question is, if your life were a book genre, what would it be? So my instant reaction to this question is to say memoir, because I feel like my life is not very interesting, but I could be a memoir and it would be focused around something, probably food and family. But I was really thinking about this, and I really want to say magical realism if it were like a fusion kind of book with a memoir. And I know books like this do exist where it's like a fantastical memoir kind of story. So I would think it would have something to do of some sort of fusion genre that doesn't really fit a box, but that would deal with my life and with like cooking and baking and maybe some sort of magical element, and of course with my family. The second question is, what villain from a book do you identify with most? I had a hard time thinking about a villain because I feel like a lot of the books that I've been reading lately haven't had villains. I've been reading a lot of like nonfiction outside of like real world things like racism and prejudice and systematic oppressions. I don't really see many villains in those books, and I obviously do not at all relate to those sorts of villains. But then I thought about my favorite Christmas villain because the holidays are coming up, and I, of course, the Grinch. How could I forget about the Grinch from Dr. Seuss? I can totally identify with the Grinch. You know, the Who's hated him and they mistreated him. Why would he love Christmas? Why would he love people that oppressed him? And of course he would isolate himself and, you know, go a little crazy and a little bonkers and take out his whole hate for the Who's on Christmas and wanting to steal the joy away from them that they stole from him as a child. So the Grinch. The next question is, what protagonist are you most similar to? I don't think that I've really read of a protagonist that is most similar to me. My gut reaction is to say Evelyn Hugo from The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I am not at all like her, but I feel like there are parts of me in her. She is the ultimate Slytherin. You know, she does anything and everything for the people that she loves, and I don't want to speak too much to that because it's a very complex thing and it's a spoiler, and I feel like a lot of people don't talk about it because it is a spoiler, but I hated that when I read that book. Like, that twist in that book, I hated it. But I feel like I would do something like that for people that I love, to protect people that I love. You know, she can hold grudges for years at a time. Like, I am the worst grudge holder there is. That's totally me. And another person that I have been told I am similar to is the older sister in Bruja Born, which is written by Zoraida Cordova. And it's been a while since I read that book, but that's a book about Latinx witches, and it's a family of female witches, and the eldest sister, Lulu is her name. I'm compared to her. I've been compared to her, at least from my sister Yvette. So maybe a fusion of those two, at least some of those characteristics between the two of them. The next question is, what book did you connect with in the past that you no longer do? And I mentioned this book in the past before, I think on another tag video, but the book that I immediately think of is Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, and I forgot the author's name, so I'll just put an overlay here. But that book was the book that was gifted to me by my mom when I was a preteen, when I was Margaret's age, the main character in the book's age. So I related to a lot of the things that she was talking about. One of the things that really stood out to me was that she just talked about menstruating like it was a normal thing, because it is a very normal thing. Yeah, I've never understood why periods and that kind of thing are such taboo subjects to talk about, especially as a preteen girl when it's like such a dramatic thing that happens for people. And she talks about like her friendship with some of her friends and some of the friendships that don't work out, and like just a lot of those like butterflies and like anxious feelings you get when you're adjusting from adolescence and moving into like those teenage awkward years. and I really related to a lot of that at the time, but I really don't think I would relate to any of that obviously now as an adult. The next question is, what recent book have you read that you would love to be a character in? And I am gonna have to go with Chew, which is a graphic novel series, and I recently read this. I actually reread it for the Get Graphic readathon that took place over the summer, and I forgot how much I really love this series. And it's just such a cool world where the main character is a detective, and he has like this ability where he can like eat things, and he can like get visions of that thing he ate. It can be fruit, it could be animals, it could be any part of the human body. And he lives in a world where like all these people have these food related abilities and powers, and if I were in this world, I would love to have like a food related ability. Like there's this lady that she can write things, and she can incite people to feel something. So she can make people feel disgusted to the point where they vomit, or she can make people feel like so happy and nostalgic and have memories of something related to that food. So there's lots of abilities. I haven't read much more into the series. I haven't reread much more into the series, so I have to remember everything, but I feel like I would really love to have like a food related ability in that world. Okay, so the last question is, what book taught you something about yourself? And I think that the book that taught me something about myself is The Little Prince. This is a beloved children's classic book that I have a bit of a different experience with because I read it as an adult for the first time. And reading it as an adult, I feel like it just reminded me to not get wrapped up into like day-to-day adult worldly things so much, and to remember to be a kid again, and to like be wondrous and be curious, and not have to get stuck into like ruts. I read this several years after I graduated college. My first job out of college was, I work in chemicals, so I had a very corporate job, and just getting wrapped up into like that sort of culture is very toxic. It's very, well, the job that I had was very toxic, so it was just not a good place to be mentally, physically, spiritually. And I think that reading this kind of just reminded me to separate yourself from that. You don't have to stew in that, and it's really important to find the kid in you again, and the joy that sparks from that and that extends from that. And that is the Who I Am tag. So I don't know who I will be tagging for this because these questions are really difficult, so I don't want to like pressure anybody to do this. Yeah, I enjoyed it, and I hope that you enjoyed watching it. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope to catch you in the next video. Bye.